Hi, everybody. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. It is October 20th, 2019, the 21st day of Tishrei, 5780. Kind of the middle of the night at this point already. It's been a really crazy few weeks of the holidays, and that's why you haven't heard my dulcet tones in a couple of weeks. Just could not get it together last week. Also, just some crazy things happening. And I don't know if I'm just more sensitive to it or if it's just statistically significant. But in addition to the usual tragedies and the car accidents, and a friend of ours passed away, childhood friend passed away from a brain tumor on Rosh Hashanah, and really the tragedies and people dying too young, just seems like a lot of elderly people are also passing away. Like just tonight, someone we know, father passed away this morning. They had the funeral, 84 years old. They had the funeral tonight in Jerusalem. That's what we do in Israel, is bury as quickly as possible and even at night, which is a very interesting experience to go to a funeral at night. You would think it would be creepy, like, being at a cemetery at night, but actually it's not. And just, there's a lot of respect, and it's just it's a very interesting experience. You should only have it when someone's died in their bed at 120. But it just seems like a lot of people that we know, and because it's the holiday season, it works out weirdly when it comes to sitting Shiva, to starting the 7-day mourning period. So there were a lot of people that we know who barely sat Shiva at all because the holidays stop Shiva. So if somebody passes away, even like 2 hours before Yom Kippur, the family sits for those 2 hours, and that's it. That's it. The holiday stops it, and it doesn't restart. And then what happens on Sukkot is if somebody passes away in the middle of the holiday, you don't start the Shiva until after the holiday is over. So we know a few people now who've been in this like weird zone for the past few days because they're in mourning, but they haven't and the person's been buried, but they haven't officially started the mourning period. They'll do that on, I guess, on Monday night or Tuesday morning when the holiday is officially out here in Israel. So it's like a lot of strange things going on. As a matter of fact, somebody that I was supposed to interview, his grandmother died, and therefore, like, he canceled the interview. So just like whatever, it should only be, again, people who've lived long, full lives and have a peaceful passing. But this has been like a very, very strange couple of weeks. But speaking of that, my grandmother, this would have been her birthday. Where we are right now in the Jewish calendar is a day called Hoshana Rabbah. It's really the official last day of Sukkot. Simchat Torah is an extra day, and that's going to be on Sunday night, Monday, where we start reading the cycle of the Torah again and dance with the Torah, and it's a really beautiful and fun day. But Hoshana Rabbah was my own grandmother's birthday. She passed away a long time ago. I think she would have been like 117, which is still not 120, but she passed away when I was a teenager. And she was only 74, which I realize now how young she was. But she's someone that I still carry with me. It's been a long, long time. But she was someone, she and my grandfather really showed me what a long-term loving relationship could be like. They were incredible people, never had a lot of money. They used to say, we're rich and maybe someday we'll have money. Because they had people, they had love, they had faith. They had both come over from Russia, and their families had all, followed the American dream and intermarried, and the brothers and the sisters and their grandchildren. Like, none of my second and third cousins, I think, are very, very few from that side of the family, are in any way living Jewish lives right now. But my grandparents were the ones that kept the faith, kept Shabbat, even though my grandfather, who was an accountant, lost jobs because he wouldn't work on Saturday. But they just felt that there were some more things that were important. And even though they really never had very much at all, they had a lot. And they showed me something incredibly important that I needed to see. And a lot of what I do, when I do it, I think about them, especially my grandma Lily, and wonder what she would have thought and how much she would have loved my children and my grandchildren now. And I still miss her. and still carry her legacy around. And now that I myself am a grandmother, so I realize how important that relationship is. It's not talked about in the Bible too much. Like Natalia is not a great example of grandmother. Actually, you have Naomi, but it's not technically her grandson, but I guess it doesn't matter. I think that's a beautiful message as well. Ruth and Boaz's son, Oved, is not technically her grandson, but she loves him and raises him according to the book of Ruth. And I think that that's a great message. So grandparenting is not just biological. It's the caring and it's the love and it's showing, it's a relationship. And so I miss her, but hopefully carrying on with my faith and with the way that I live my life in something that she would be proud of. So on Hoshana Rabbah, I think of her especially. So I know where you are, Grandma Lily. And a month after she passed away is actually when I met my husband. So I always thought, like, she went up and she like said to Hashem, okay, you need to listen to me here. We need to send her someone special. And she made it happen. So I feel that love even in a different dimension. But what's interesting about Hoshana Rabbah in general is that it's seen as kind of the final judgment, like what we pray for, and that we will be forgiven, and that we will also have a good year, and like signed and sealed in the book of life for the next year. So that really is a big deal. That's the essence of Yom Kippur, but it ends on Hoshana Rabbah. That's like the final thing. And that's why there's a whole lot of Jews who will be learning Torah, going to Torah lessons and doing good things, even more than usual. Some people even stay up all night to learn Torah, especially Dvarim, especially the book of Deuteronomy and the book of Psalms. And so it's there's a lot of like lessons going on everywhere, and people really connecting even more to the Torah. And then an interesting thing is going to be happening in synagogue, which is one of the last remaining rituals that we have from the temple, which is hakafot, where the men walk around the synagogue and they use the willows from the 4 species that we've been using on Sukkot, and they like beat the floor with the willow. And it's a very ancient ritual. It comes, like I said, out of the temple times. The word chag, which we translate as holiday, it's the same root as the word hug, which is to encircle, and that's where Chag comes from, because that's what you used to do, is encircle in the temple. And Hajj also, which is, of course, the Muslim ritual of going down to Mecca, encircling the Kaaba. So that's all the same word, Chag, Hajj, hug. And in the synagogues on Hoshana Rabbah, you see like the last remains of that, and also tremendous prayers for rain. This is going to be the beginning, we hope, of our rainy season. We had a little preview of that last week, actually. And by the way, though, the thing about the encircling, because I didn't want to mention this, especially because we're reading Psalms. So Psalms 26, verse 6 says, I'll translate into English, I wash my hands in purity and circle around your altar, Lord. So that's also hooks into the ritual that's going to be happening in the synagogues. But anyway, we had a little preview of the rainy season last week. So what I try and do on the first day of the intermediate days is save that day for my family, and we do something fun, some kind of workshop. So we did Papa Melach in Kibbutz Rosh Tzurim here in Gush Etzion, which is, it's more than just bread making, and I take people there all the time. I take tourists there all the time, so it's really fun to take my own family there. And then we were going to go on a hike, meet some family, some of my cousins that we were going to meet them in the middle, in the hills between where they live in Beit Shemesh or where I live in Gush Etzion, and do a little hike, and the kids were going to play in the trees. And we got there a few minutes before them, and it started. The clouds came in, and thunder and lightning. So obviously we canceled the hike. But at the time, so we were sitting there, my son-in-law, Gedalia Bloom, who's very active on social media, so he filmed me talking a little bit about Sukkot, and it's gone all over the place. Maybe some of you have seen it. If not, and you're interested, I'm sure it's on my Facebook page, but you can write to me. Just like really off the cuff, some thoughts about Sukkot, because again, when you live here in the land, you feel the holiday in a different way. Sukkot was probably the most important pilgrimage festival in the days of the temple. And it's not just for the Jews. Like, you had people that came from all over the world, and you have that today as well. There was a big parade in Jerusalem of non-Jews also that came to Jerusalem and came to Israel. But you feel Sukkot in a way, again, because the transitional season between the dry season and the wet season, between so-called summer and the winter, but it's also the only time of year where you have all 5 of our fruits of the 7 species of the land of Israel, aside from the barley and the wheat. The very end, we're having now the harvest of the grapes and the figs and the pomegranates. We're on a lot of people's tables and incorporated into our menus on the holiday. I made a cake with all 7 of the species in it, which was really good. As a fruitcake. How did I get the barley in there? A little beer to the batter. But in addition to that, of course, we also have the dates. We're at the peak now of the harvest of the dates and the holiday. As we've discussed before, we're sitting under schach, we're holding a lulav, we're sitting under the palm frond. So it's very, very much about the date palms, but it's also the very beginning of the olive harvest. There are some of the trees that are already being harvested for the olives, which, even though that's connected with our next holiday, which is Chanukah, which will be in 2 months, the Chanukah is also like the end of the olive festival. And so right now on Sukkot, you've got all those species, you see what's going on the land, you feel the transition in the weather. And if we see Hashem or at least how I see Hashem, in 3 major things. In the Torah, so we have that, of course. This is a biblical festival. In nature, so we have that as well. We're seeing what's blooming. And in Jewish history, which I live and breathe, and of course, talking about how we used to celebrate the holidays, what remnants we still have of the ancient way, what are the new things that we've incorporated in. So Sukkot really brings all of that together. And in addition to family, in addition to people going on trips all around. So the rain put a literal damper on things, but it didn't rain all that much and people still got around. So anyhow, so my son-in-law filmed me talking about these things just because it's there. It's just when you're here and you feel it and you see it, then it's all around you. And the next day I had a One Israel Fund bus trip. We had a sold out bus and went down to Hebron. So Hebron was really hopping. I'm sure a lot of you know that Ben Shapiro, the famous conservative radio host, was down there, and Yishai got to take him around, which is really fabulous. And so I went down there with the group, and we had special permission to get up to a place called Abu Snena. That's the picture that's accompanying this show, is the view of the Tomb of the Patriarchs from Abu Snena. Abu Snena is one of the hills that surrounds the Tomb of the Patriarchs, which of course is in the valley, because what is it? It is a building that's over a cave at the edge of a field. So it makes perfect sense that it would be in the valley of Hebron. And the city of Hebron, the ancient city of Hebron, which we now call Tel Rumeda, is up on one of the hills. But Abu Snena is another hill that's right next to Tel Rumeda. And there is, fortunately now, an army base of ours up there. Our current prime minister had given away parts of Hebron in a very misbegotten agreement about a little over 20 years ago in the mid-90s. And one of the commanders of the army who came on the scene a few years later, after people had been shot at and killed, like the baby Shalhevet Pas, who lived in the valley near the Tomb of the Patriarchs, because from that hill you just have, you'll see the picture. You can just aim at whoever you wanted, and somebody did, aimed at a 10-month-old baby and killed her. Anyhow, so Dvir Weinberg, he got that back. He was able to get the army to get the high places and to give security to everybody in Hebron. He himself was later killed in an infiltration and a whole battle that happened in Hebron. But he made a huge difference, not just to the lives of the people living in Hebron, but to those of us who want to go and visit. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who want to go to Hebron and want to go there safely. So we first went and said thank you to the soldiers. We brought them goodies. We got to see Hebron from how they see it. I've been up there a couple of times. One of my sons was stationed there, and I wasn't there when he was there, but there were other times that I got up there. Anyhow, so we had special permission to get up there, and that's how we started our day, and we're able to really understand the topography, which is a big thing of mine, to like take away the modern buildings, open the Bible, and look at it as it would have looked during those days and understand why people walked a certain way, why towns were built in a certain place, and all of that. Then you get you can really reconstruct some of the activities and the context of what was happening during the biblical times and really in all the years since, because Hebron, of course, has a 4,000-year history and things are being discovered there all the time. So that was great. Then, of course, we went down to the Tomb of the Patriarchs. Specifically that day, I'd arranged to go down because it was one of only 10 days a year where the Jews get access to the entire Tomb of the Patriarchs. Otherwise, the most beautiful room, which is Ulam Yitzchak, or Isaac's Hall, is just for the Muslims. Really beautiful room, Crusader pillars and Mameluke, like the ablak, the red and white stonework that they did. Really, really nice. So we were able to go through the whole Maran, of course, the prayers that people say there, and just really being able to be in a place where even if you've gone many times, especially to go on the holidays, it's always important to have a reconnection. And then we stopped at the Pina Chama, at the little warm corner there where soldiers come all the time and get goodies. And it's a project of One Israel Fund, and we left things for them there and heard from the guy who runs it, who started it 4.5 years ago when his father passed away. And his father really loved the soldiers and felt that what they were doing was so important. And so Ofer wanted to do something in memory of his father. So he started this warm corner, and he makes sure that all the soldiers are taken care of. And, they come back sometimes 2, 3 in the morning after some activities to make sure that terrorists don't leave Hebron and go anywhere they want and do terrible things. And he makes sure that they come and they have something to eat and somebody to care for them. So that was really great to understand that the things that we do is because other people are working very hard to keep us safe, to keep us secure. And very often in our lives, when we go into a situation and it's running smoothly, it's because somebody worked really, really hard to make sure that it was running smoothly and went easily. I'm speaking here, of course, as a wife and mother as well, right? Where it's like that stuff just doesn't happen. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. I was the only woman in the meeting. There were like 10 guys. So at some point it got late. I said I had to go home. Somebody asked me why you have to leave? I said, because I don't have a wife at home. So, some of these things still just have to be done. Anyhow, we left Hebron. We came up to Gush Etzion, had a beautiful lunch in the Sukkah in Kfar Etzion. And then, this is the first time I've ever done this, went to a chocolate workshop in the kibbutz, which is always fun. And 50 people of all ages, from 3 until probably 80, had a great time making chocolate. So that's a fun workshop to do because, the days have to be about, you got to shake it up a little bit. So you have the prayer and you have the heaviness and the seriousness of Hebron. And it's also important to have a little fun, I think, or a lot of fun. And then we went over to Alon Shvut to speak to my friend Cheryl Mandel, who's lived there for a long time. She is a bereaved mom. Her son Daniel was killed many years ago in Shechem, in Nablus, looking for terrorists. And she's an amazing woman. The light in her eyes went out a little bit after he was killed, but she's still by far one of the most bubbly and upbeat and incredible people that I have ever met. And she's a dancer, and she just even walks like that. She bounces around, and she took us to one of the new neighborhoods in Alon Shvut. It's actually not such a new neighborhood, but it's about to be refurbished, where there are Peruvians, people from Peru who felt connected to Judaism, who came to Israel, who converted to Judaism, and have lived here already for a long time. Anyhow, they need a new park. It's something that we're involved with. So the kids got to burn off a little bit of their chocolate sugar energy on the swings and on the slides. And she told us a little bit about the community and about the people there. And then we drove through my town, through Efrat, where I rarely take people. There isn't much to do here tourism-wise, but a lot of people have heard of it. So we drove through and saw the new neighborhoods. And I pointed out the Dagan Hill, where I was busy in the summer of 1995, making sure that it wasn't handed over to Bethlehem, because it's right next to Bethlehem. And at the time, the Israeli government was going to give it over to Arafat. And a bunch of us, mainly women, fought very hard on the hill that summer, physically settled there and lived in tents and did whatever we could until we got dragged out. But now we go there, and there are families living there, including one of my sons and his wife and 2 kids. So it's a great feeling to feel like I did something maybe somewhere, maybe not as much as I could have, but we can all make a difference. You just have to get out there and try. So it was a really nice day and a great bunch of people on the bus. And it's so funny because some of the people who come on my trips were new, never met them before. There was a family that had heard me speak in Bal Harbor last month in Florida. And so they signed up for the trip and we spent the day together. Delightful family, great kids. But there's other people who are more regulars and they come to Israel and they come on my bus trips and I see them all the time. And a few of them also listen to this podcast regularly, and it's just so funny to talk to people who know me well and like talk about certain interviews that they listen to at home. And because they know me, they know that I'm holding back. Like they know that I don't agree with something that the person that I'm interviewing is saying. But they said to me, we admire the fact that you held back, that you gave the person space, and that it's important that people are able to air your views. But we know you, and we know that there's no way that you agreed with what he said, which is true. But I was happy about that. That when I, obviously not in a monologue like today, where I'm taking up all the airspace, but that when I interview, I try not to talk. And I really try and let the person that I'm interviewing talk, and that's what they're there for, and share. And yeah, it does not always mean that I agree with what they have to say, but definitely want to give them the respect and learn. And maybe they'll change my mind, and maybe they won't. But I want you guys to be able to learn from everybody that I interview. And and I hope it comes across how much I like people, how much I like interviewing, and how much I'm concentrating on what they're saying, and really trying to make it come. Not everybody that I interview is going to be a smooth speaker. Some are fantastic, and I just have to sit back and say, occasionally. But others not so. Not everybody who writes a book is necessarily a great speaker, and be able to facilitate their getting their ideas out, because I think that that's what this platform is for. And I feel privileged to be able to choose who comes here. And that would interest me, I hope interests you as well. So that's kind of it for today. I had lone soldiers over Shabbat, not just at my table, but sleeping in the house, which is always a really great thing to do. But it's been a lot of cooking. It's going to be a little bit more tomorrow, and more friends are coming, and we're getting together. And I just think it's cool that we're starting the cycle of reading the Torah again, just at the time that we pray for rain. It's like, the cycle of nourishing of our souls, but also asking for nourishment for the ground, which is also at some point going to nourish our bodies. I read somewhere years ago that the fact that it rains on the ocean means that the rain wasn't just created for us, for people, and for agriculture. What it means that it rains on the ocean, do the fish need the rain? I'm not sure. But there's a bigger picture here in the world. It's not all about us. And so I thought that was a cool thing. I know that I'm going to cry in synagogue when I read about Moshe Rabbeinu, about Moses dying. I know it's coming every single year. It happens. But the older I get, the more I realize what an incredible leader he was, how he inspired us to this day, despite the fact that he was not eloquent, and the Torah makes it a point to say that he stammered. His words still resonate, and the relationship that he had with Hashem, the special relationship and the special prophet that he was, is still stands out even after these many thousands of years. And I was in Jordan, as I've talked about before, a few years ago, standing on Mount Nebo, standing where Moshe Rabbeinu stood, looked into the promised land, and then died, and was told he couldn't go in, and then he was taken to the eternal world. And to stand there and to know that in a few days' time I was going to be able to go into the promised land, that I have been chosen to live here, to make my life here, to do whatever I can here, is just really overwhelming. And that feeling just doesn't go away. That just tremendous gratitude that I get to live in the land. I get to eat the fruits of the land. I get to learn Torah, to guide people, to do it all here is really something absolutely extraordinary. So we're then going to be changing the clocks, and we're going to be getting into the shorter days of winter. Like I said, 2 months, no holidays, which is just fine because I got to hit the gym after the last month of holidays. But Thanksgiving Day, November 28th, which is a Thursday as usual, Also, it's part of the weekend of Parashat Chaye Sarah, of the Torah portion of the life of Sarah, where a lot of people come in and go to Hebron, harking back to Hebron again. So I'm doing guiding for One Israel Fund, a joint trip with Regavim, fabulous organization that's tracking the illegal Arab building all over Judea and Samaria and also in Israel. So Nomi Khan of Regavim and I, for the first time, are going to be co-leading the tour. So if you're going to be around, the flyer is up on the One Israel Fund site. You can go, you can sign up. It includes lunch. I'll be talking about the legal things and the legal project that One Israel Fund does, and she'll be showing us some of the illegal things that the Palestinian Authority is doing, being funded by the European Union, far away from the main roads, far away from the eye of the media that probably knows about it but doesn't want to report on it anyway, to see what's really, really happening on the ground here in Judea and Samaria. And never resting, of course, in trying to make that difference and trying to change the situation and wake people up to what's really happening. Because if you're just asleep at the wheel, it's not good. And you have to be aware of things that may not be comfortable, but we have to be aware of them. Otherwise, the people who are trying to put facts on the ground that are inimicable, not just for the Jews here, but for Christians here and also for the good Muslims here, because Israel having sovereignty in Judea and Samaria is good for everybody involved. And that's a message that we have to keep getting out, and hopefully we will continue to do that. Spent a lot of time on the bus actually talking about the Bar Kokhba revolt, the failed revolt of the 2nd century, because his headquarters was Gush Etzion, and his coins had the 4 species on them of Sukkot, and the letters that were found in the 1960s, where we finally figured out what his first name was because he signed them, Shimon, talk about bringing up the lulavim and from Ein Gedi, where the palm trees grow, and about tithing the etrugim. So even in the middle of everything that was going on, they were concerned about Sukkot. So he was connected to the trip, he was connected to the area, and of course connected to the holiday, and thinking about when it is wise to want independence and when the forces arrayed against you are too great. But we have our independence, we have our sovereignty in little Israel, and it's time to extend it out. So got our work cut out for us in 5780, not me, you guys as well. And of course, if you're living in the land, just appreciate every minute. And if you're not, make your plans for when you're coming. If you've never been, it's high time. And if you have been, then it's time to come back, because things are changing all the time. And there is just something about this place that will recharge your soul batteries like nothing else. So if you're into like some kind of New Year's resolutions, that might be a good one. In the meantime, I am going to go to sleep because I have a long day ahead of me. But I did want to tune into you guys, so you shouldn't miss me too much. So Simchat Torah Sameach. And thanks for listening. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. I want to thank Tabitha and Ben, especially during the holidays, for getting this show out. You can always write to me, eve@thelandofisrael.com. And I need some advice from some of you out there. I love gardening. I love planting flowers. I love how they look. And just the act of gardening and getting the dirt under my fingernails is something really therapeutic for me. But there is a cat in my neighborhood that digs up my flowers, and it's making me crazy. So if any of you, someone told me that if you plant lavender that takes them, then they'll go away. I've tried chili powder. I've tried all these smells. I'm about to commit felinicide. Is that even a word? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go kill the cat. But it's very frustrating because it's such a beautiful thing to have pots of flowers around. And it's not just the money and it's not just the effort. They're all like scattered around when I wake up in the morning. So if any of you have any ideas on how to stop this cat from digging up my flowers, I would really appreciate it. So drop me a line. Take care of everybody. You can always check out my website, eveharow.com for last shows if you're a new listener. And for where I'm going to be on the East Coast in December. I just booked my tickets, Baltimore and in the New York, New Jersey area. February, 2 trips to the United States, one for the One Israel Fun Dinner in early February, but I'll also be out in Sacramento for a couple days before that. End of February, going to APAC, and hopefully they will let Judea and Samaria become a topic this year. I don't know. We'll see. But in the meantime, planning to go. So here, I thought I was going to sign off 5 minutes ago, and I'm still blabbing on. Thanks for listening. Thanks for staying with me. Eve Harow. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye for now.
He who reigns within himself, says John Milton, and rules passions, desires, and fears is more than a king. I'd like to believe I have quite a grip on myself, though I can't claim any royal descent. I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is The Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at the